All right, James. Obviously, it's been a great year for both of us. uh, we always get the idea of, what are demons? Not talking so much in a supernatural manner, but in the far worse manner of, the demons inside of us that make life a simulation of the underworld.
I wouldn't put the supernatural out. I'm becoming more and more superstitious in my dotage. I do believe that I suffered a demonic attack when I apparently spent 4 hours trying to kill myself with the desk and the floor and the room that I used to rent from Sensei Steve. I lost 4 hours to a sleep seizure. My nose was in 7 pieces. When I came back 2 weeks later, it was just a mess of blood. I think I opened the window because I stayed up for 3 days and I was jacking myself back and forth between caffeine and whiskey. Now, social interaction has brought upon me in the past year people that I refer to as sendings. I actually think they're either demons or possessed by demons. And this has happened a whole lot since marijuana has become legal and you can buy any strength of this stuff you want. I've encountered very socially needy, psychotically violent weed heads, which I never encountered in my life before, and I encountered 3 of them in a year. Now, the ancient idea of the empire of the demons is the old gods. The primitive Christians in the 1st century AD, in the 100s, in the 200s, in the early 300s, up until the point where Constantine raised the cross on the capital after he turned Byzantium into Constantinople and he made Christianity the official religion. Up until that point, the primitive Christians believed that Apollo was a real powerful deity. The Old Testament is just chock full of mentions of other gods. And the God is the highest, the most high. Well, there are other high powers in heaven. And Gibbon's treatment of the primitive Christians, his 15th chapter of the first book of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, is an ingenious treatment of early Christianity. He points out that the primitive Christians believed that the demons, at the very least, were pretending to be Apollo, Aphrodite, Jove, that they were inhabiting the temples of these gods. And he actually suggests that for the best inventory of these demons, which the demonry would be the 1/3 of the heavenly host that rebelled with Satan against God. And they're consigned to the underworld, and their only succor, they were beyond salvation. The only thing that they could hope for was to share their suffering, like women. When they suffer, they want all their girlfriends to suffer with them, and they'll sit around and all cry about the same thing. He suggests Milton's Paradise Lost for an inventory of the demons. In the Song of Roland, about 1,000 years ago, the Muslims are depicted as worshiping elements of demonry, with Muhammad being one of them, and Apollo. Apollo was included in the gods that Teraldus the Norman suggested that the Muslims were praying to when they were going against Charlemagne and Roland and Archbishop Turpin in the Pyrenees. Now, Christians disagree on when the miraculous phase of Christianity ended, when miracles ended. Catholics still kind of believe that miracles can still happen. And it's a very political process about deciding whether or not there was really a miracle here. And it could take hundreds of years to decide if this is a miracle and maybe if this person was a saint. One of the most traditional Protestant perspectives is that when Constantine raised the cross, miracles stopped. and then everything that's claimed to be a miracle or miraculous happening after that is bogus, which means that the only miraculous thing that happens is instigated by the demons and the devils, which Protestants believed up until the point where Cotton Mather wrote Wonders of the Invisible World in about 1698, 1699. And when his father, Increase Mather, wrote The War Against the Heathen Indians, where he was discussing how they were Satan's children coming out of the forest. In modern terms, in the ancient world, the primitive Christians could see where the demons were housed in temples, which were the houses of the god or of the demon. In the modern world, there are not houses for these demons. And modern people, essentially, in a lot of ways, we worship ourselves as ascendant gods. And I watched Joe Rogan and the one masculinity expert with the irritating Irish voice, the Canadian guy, discuss how humanity is like trying to ascend, trying to become more intelligent, more evolved, and get out into the stars and become something bigger and better than it is. I think this impulse leaves people open for demonic possession in that way. And I would suggest if you want to look for the people that are possessed by demons amongst us, look at the people who want to share their misery. You know, the person that wants to approach life from the negative perspective, drag you into his negative perspective, and either offer no answers or impossible answers. And of course, political answers, they're pretty much impossible. They're impossible for us because we can't affect politics. We can't very well take over the government. So I would say that they were the demons among us. They're housed in our media platforms. The ancients in the pre-Christian era, if they could see these devices that we have here, this would be Apollo's oracle. And this is something that only the most vetted people in the community would see, and only once a year, not peering into it any day, whenever you want to, and sometimes all day. So there was supposed to be a selection process for people who could mentally handle interaction with the deity. We essentially have a myriad deities in this media pantheon that we have. And even if it's just something that's a grotesque imitation of ancient demonics, I think it could still cause a lot of problems for people. So I would limit the media exposure as like number one as far as dealing against problems with the demons. And the other thing is limiting exposure to insane people who are deeply into drug culture. This is something that I've experienced traveling around, and I never expected marijuana to incite violence, but I had to deal with violence that was incited by marijuana over the past year. So I would be careful there. Some of the people that I know that have smoked a lot of pot in their life said that we now have a situation where anybody can get any strength they want, and you can end up with a weed psychosis now, where it was very unusual in the past. So,
all right.
Hopefully it's useful to somebody. I guess it was a ramble.
No, that's fine. No, you did good.
Yeah.